News Channel 5 Network. This is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside Politics. I'm Ben Hall. This week, a conversation with the newly elected Republican congressman in the 7th Congressional District. Matt Van Epps won that special election at the end of last year, and he is joining us live now via Zoom from Washington. So, Congressman, thank you very much for being here.
Hey, Ben, thank you so much for having me back on. I'm excited to talk and really appreciate it.
You've been on several times, and we appreciate your willingness to come on. There's a lot to talk about. I want to talk about some of the bills you've filed, your transition, but certainly the current events and what's going on with Iran. What kind of updates are you getting about the war in Iran, and how would you say it is going?
Sure. Well, thanks, Ben. And again, just excited to be back on. I sit on the Homeland Security Committee, and I'm on one of the subcommittees as the Counterterrorism and Intel Subcommittee. And we have regular updates in the committee process on a whole host of things. But we've also received a classified briefing from the administration on Iran a couple of weeks ago when that started. But listen, I think President Trump is executing peace through strength in this operation. We saw it almost a year ago in Operation Midnight Hammer. We've seen it in the operation in Venezuela, and we're seeing it now with this current operation in Iran. The president, as the negotiator in chief, went into this to negotiate with the regime in good faith. And what he found is that the regime did not want to negotiate. They were stalling so that they could continue to work to get a nuclear weapon. And that is the clear red line here, is no nuclear weapons for a tyrannical regime with a stated policy of death to America and death to Israel. And so the president executed this operation, and I think one of the latest numbers is that over 80% of the missile launchers have been taken out. That's the other key objective, is destroying this regime's ability to send ballistic missiles regionally, and then they were working on the capability to even reach the United States.
So this week, President Trump's top terrorism official, Joe Kent, he resigned over the war. He wrote, "Iran posed no imminent threat to the United States, and President Trump launched a war under pressure from Israel." What do you say to that?
Well, I think the president was absolutely right to execute this operation. As I said, this is peace through strength, and I think the information and the intelligence that he had is that Iran was working on getting a nuclear weapon, which is the clear red line. Operation Midnight Hammer decimated their nuclear program, but what we saw is that they continued to work to get a nuclear weapon, and that is unacceptable. I mean, Iran with a nuclear weapon would hold the world hostage to a level we have never seen before. As the biggest state sponsor of terror the world has ever seen. Ben, as you know, I'm a veteran. I served in Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom in Iraq. And I think these numbers are low, but over 650 Americans were killed by Iran and their proxies. This is a regime that does not stop and will not stop exporting terror, and that is absolutely unacceptable.
So President Trump began this war without congressional approval, saying there was that imminent threat. Is there a point, which you obviously support, is there a point where you would want Congress to weigh in? If troops are on the ground in Iraq, is there a point at which there should be a vote by Congress for this, whatever you want to call it, war excursion to continue?
Well, we did vote to ensure that the president did have he does have the authority under Article 2 in War Powers Resolution. He is executing this, and it's illegal. I think the president has said that this is a narrow operation to dismantle the nuclear weapons, to take out the missile launchers, to take out these drones that we're seeing that have wreaked havoc, both in this operation and then outside of it. And those are the narrow objectives. And so I think in this phase of the operation, we're doing everything that we should be doing and need to do. And obviously, if this operation were to expand for some reason, we'd have to go back and reevaluate that.
President Trump campaigned promising to end endless, foreign wars. What do you say to supporters of MAGA who don't like this, who say this is not what the president campaigned on? When you look at Venezuela and talk about Greenland and Cuba and now Iran, what do you say to some of the supporters who are saying those things?
Sure. Well, I think first and foremost, I think the president has worked across the world in other areas of conflict to end the war, to end conflicts in a number of places. And this is peace through strength. This is the president's first instinct, and the first thing he has done is negotiate. And that happened before Operation Midnight Hammer. It happened before the raid in Venezuela. And it's happened now before Operation Epic Fury. And so the president has tried to negotiate in good faith. But this president sets a very clear red line. And unlike previous administrations, he means what he says, and then he executes according to that. And so that's what we're seeing now. And the president wants peace and security for Americans and across the world. And this is what it takes to do that. And he's had the courage to step up and execute this mission.
Couple more things on Iran before we move on. The president has not taken off the table reinstituting the draft. Do you have a thought about that? Is there talk about that up in Washington? Congress would have to approve that. Where would you stand on that? What are your thoughts?
Sure. There's not talk that I've heard. I'm sure that there have been conversations. The president should have every option on the table. I mean, that at the end of the day, we want the commander-in-chief to have the ability to execute the mission with the resources that he needs to get it done. We've operated my entire time in service, now over 20 years, both active duty and in the National Guard, has been a peacetime volunteer force and, a volunteer force in wartime. And we've seen really great success, a very capable military, but the president should have every option on the table to be able to assess the current threat and what he will need to accomplish that mission.
How concerned are you, lastly, how concerned are you by what you're seeing? The lack of support, it seems, from our allies. There are a lot of people that are very concerned. They're watching the news. They're concerned. How concerned are you, and should people be?
Well, I would say the president is right to execute this operation that is peace through strength, and we're seeing a bunch of support across the world, obviously in conjunction with our ally and close partner Israel. But I think we're seeing other regional actors that are getting involved and assisting, especially as Iran indiscriminately reaches out and attacks infrastructure and civilians. Absolutely unacceptable. But we are, this is absolutely critical for America's defense, for our national security, and I'm supportive of the president in these actions.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll come back, continue our discussion with Republican Congressman Matt Van Epps. We'll take a break. Be back right after this. Welcome back to Inside Politics. We are talking this week with Republican Congressman Matt Van Epps. He's joining us via Zoom from Washington, D.C. So let's go back to Congressman Van Epps. Thank you again for being here. When you campaigned in that special election, you said your first priority would be, as a veteran, a bill involving veterans. So what is the first bill that you have brought forward in the time that you've been up there?
Absolutely. Thanks, Ben, for bringing this up. So we said on the campaign trail that we would work for Gold Star families and veterans, and that's exactly what we've done. This very first bill that got introduced last week is the Honor Gold Star Families Act. And so this bill does a couple of very critical things. It increases the death gratuity. That's the money that's paid to a service member's family after they die, from the current amount of $100,000 to $200,000. After this gets paid, this is meant to get paid in the immediate aftermath of that tragedy, and help with those initial bills. And it was last increased to $100,000 in 2006, so it hasn't been increased since then. and has not kept pace with inflation. It should be at $160,000. And so our proposal is to increase that to $200,000 and then provide an annual cost of living adjustment so it keeps pace with inflation. We think it's absolutely critical. This is a bipartisan bill that has support across the aisle. We have 16 co-sponsors right now, and that number is growing. And importantly, we have support from Gold Star mothers and Gold Star families. They are backing the bill. This is the right thing to do to take care of families in that critical time of need after a service member has paid the ultimate sacrifice.
Seems like there wouldn't be much opposition to that. I mean, who would oppose that? So you're going to double the amount that would go to Gold Star families, people who have lost a loved one, a family member serving their country.
That's right. It is for Gold Star families, but it applies to any active duty service member that dies while in active service. And so this would increase it. The other thing we're going to do is we propose to make this retroactive to January 1st of this year to cover Operation Epic Fury and those service members who have bravely given their life in defense of this country. So that is part of this plan as well, making it start on January 1st and increasing it to $200,000 and then having an annual cost of living adjustment so that it keeps pace with inflation.
You're also focused on the national terrorism system, I guess overhauling it or upgrading it. What is the situation now? I think we all remember how that was brought in with a color-coded type situation. How would it be upgraded or changed?
That's right. So the National Terrorism Advisory System was first implemented after 9/11. That was the old green, yellow, red system that was then updated in 2011 to make it more accurate and precise to the actual potential terrorist threat and alerting the public. But it hasn't been updated since then. So this bill will provide an update to ensure that we meet people where they're at, and it updated for current technology and information flow. So we're eager to support this. This is also bipartisan. We are leading this out of the Counterterrorism and Intel Subcommittee of Homeland Security. So that's the starting point, and then it will go to the full Homeland Security Committee, and then hopefully to the House floor for a vote after that.
Have you been briefed about possible terrorist attacks as a result of what is happening in Iran? Is there a higher risk level now? What are you aware of?
Well, Ben, the fact remains that under 4 years of a porous border in the Biden administration, and some estimates up to 15 million illegal aliens coming into this country, what we know for sure is that about 100 of those people that were released into our country are either known or suspected terrorists from the watch list. And so that is a real and present threat. It's something we stay focused on every single day. And we should have, our defenses should go up when we have increased threats and increased military operations. The threat is increasing, so the response should increase. It's why the Department of Homeland Security should be fully funded, and Democrats should join with my Republican colleagues to get that done. We passed that out of the House. It's in the Senate now, and the Senate needs to get it done so that we fully fund Homeland Security and the critical protections that it provides.
Another thing we saw a lot in the campaign and your commercials and all the commercials that were on was talk about affordability. So you've been up there a short time, but what do you see being done? What are you proposing? What are Republicans proposing to help families deal with increasing costs?
Absolutely. So there's a few things, and one is the 21st Century Road to Housing bill. So a bill that the House got done, sent it to the Senate. They made some adjustments, and it's coming back to the House. But as we talked about housing affordability, this is one step in that direction. It does a number of things, but it provides a standard blueprint or format for housing that will cut red tape and make it more streamlined so that builders can use a template, and it will ensure that the overall cost of housing goes down. So that is absolutely critical. More work to do there, but I'm excited to support that bill when it gets back to the House. You know, healthcare has been. We talked a lot about healthcare when I was on with you before, and decreasing costs there. The House got done since I've been here. The first step in a broader push to decrease the cost of healthcare, and the bill that we got done before, it was actually before Christmas. That one also did a couple of things to decrease costs. It enabled association health plans, so small businesses can join together for insurance to drive down costs. It funded cost sharing reductions, which is a little counterintuitive, but by funding that, it decreases overall costs. And then it made PBM, the pharmacy benefit managers, it provided some streamlining there and information that also would drive down costs. There's more that we need to do, but that was a step in the right direction.
You talked right off the top here about some bipartisan bills, some bills that are supported by both Democrats and Republicans. You're new up there. How would you assess the political climate? How is the political climate up there?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think it's what a lot of the American public sees. It's polarized in many ways. I think the two bills that I mentioned, the first one that we've introduced, the Honor Gold Star Families Act, is bipartisan, and it should be. It's a common sense, straightforward way to take care of our families who have given the ultimate sacrifice when their service member has been killed. One of the ways I'm honored to be on the 4-Country Caucus, and that is a bipartisan, cross-partisan group of veterans that meet on a regular basis to work on legislation like our bill for Gold Star families. And so we'll be doing more work there, but there are some very common sense things that we should be getting done that Democrats have not supported. The Save America Act is one. This is a better than 80-20 issue for voter ID, to show voter ID when you're both registering to vote in federal elections and you're voting in federal elections. We did an internal poll that had even stronger numbers than that. I think above 90% of people want to get this done.
Okay, all right. We need to take a break, and then we'll come back. And I want to ask you some questions about the midterms, coming up midterms. So we'll take a break. Be back right after this. Welcome back, everyone. Inside Politics, joined by Republican Congressman Matt Van Epps. He's via Zoom from Washington, D.C. I want to talk about the midterms very briefly here. You won a contested special election by 9 points. A year earlier, a Republican won that Republican district by 22 points. What would you advise other Republicans as they approach midterms?
Well, we were honored to have such broad support. This is, Ben, let me just say to all of your viewers out there, I'm just so honored to be in this and representing the Tennessee 7th Congressional District. The responsibility is not something I take lightly, and it was a broad coalition of support that allowed us to win in that special election. And you know, I would say you've got to get out and work hard every single day. That's what we said we'd be the hardest working team. We built incredible endorsements, endorsed by the president. I've been endorsed by the president again in this election cycle that we're in right now, and we're fighting forward. You know, Ben, it looks a lot different this current cycle. You know, we had 11 of us total in the primary, and I don't have a primary opponent in this part, but we're fighting like as hard as we have like we did before in the primary in the last primary. So
nationwide, do you worry about a blue wave?
No, I think we're in good position. We've Republicans for the first time I think in at least recent history have outraised Democrats going into the midterms, and so I think that helps put us in a position of strength. There's a lot of work to do, But we are we're working hard in our election, but we're also working hard for those that are running and to ensure that we maintain the majority in the House.
Congressman Andy Ogles, he represents a different part of Nashville. He said Muslims don't belong in American society. What do you think of that statement? Do you disagree or agree with that statement? Muslims don't belong in American society.
Well, Ben, I'm not going to get into a normal routine of commenting on my colleagues' statements and would ask you to talk to Andy about that. What I can say broadly is that Islamic extremism, radical Islamic extremism, has no place in our country. It is what I fought in Iraq and Afghanistan in the global war on terror. Sharia law has no place in America. That is counter to our Constitution, and it has no place. That being said, the vast majority of Muslim people are good people that want to raise their families, that want safety and security, and like all of us, want to live peacefully and raise our families and be productive members of society. Those are the people that that have to be Americans and be in America. And it's peace-loving people.
What else is major for you in the final 30 seconds we have here?
Absolutely. So I'm also on Science, Space, and Technology, a really important committee. We've got some markups that we're working this week, and we'll be going into next week.
Well, Congressman, okay, thank you. We're gonna have to stop there. But Congressman, thank you for coming on. Reminder: this is also a podcast. Just download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again to Congressman Matt Van Epps for being here, and thanks to all of you for watching and listening. Have a great weekend, everybody.